In this video, we're going to focus on angle puzzles, or puzzles using the geometric truths and theorems that we've established in our class. First, I want to review a few of the tools that we're going to be able to use to solve these angle puzzles. First of all, there are the parallel line theorems, of which there are 4. The corresponding angles postulate says that if two lines are cut by a transversal or are parallel, if that's true, if and only if the corresponding angles are congruent. The alternate interior angles theorem, two lines cut by a transversal are parallel if and only if the alternate interior angles are congruent. Likewise, the lines cut by a transversal are parallel if and only if alternate exterior angles are congruent. And lastly, two lines cut by a transversal are parallel if and only if consecutive interior angles are supplementary, or the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. We've also had the triangle sum theorem, which states that the sum of the measures of the interior angles of a triangle, so in this case it would be angles 1, 2, and 3, the interior angles of a triangle, the sum of the measures, so the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180 degrees. And then we have the triangle external angle theorem, which says that the measure of an exterior angle of a triangle, which is an angle formed by extending a line, so angle 4 would be our exterior angle for this triangle. The measure of that exterior angle, the measure of angle 4, equals the sum of the measures of the non-adjacent, the ones that aren't next to it, the non-adjacent interior angles. So the measure of angle 4 is equal to the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 1. So those are 3 tools that you can use to solve angle puzzles. And with those, let's see how we do with this puzzle. The puzzle gives you a figure. Notice you have 2 parallel lines. Okay, I'll call these lines L and lines M. And they're parallel. They're given with the arrows. This is how you denote parallel lines. You're also given that the measure of angle 1 is 80 degrees. And the measure of angle 4 is 125 degrees. And it's your task, to solve the puzzle, to find the measures of each of these remaining angles. So I'm going to walk through how I would do this using tools that we've established in class. First of all, some tools that we've established that weren't even listed in this video, but that we've established actually before this video and in prior videos or in the class. Angles 1 and 2 form a straight angle, so they are supplementary. So if angle 1 is 80, the measure of angle 2 is 100 degrees. Angles 1 and 11 are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent, so measure of angle 11 is 80. Measure of angle 12, okay, 12 and 2 are vertical angles, so the measure of angle 12 is also 100 degrees. Now let's use the fact that L and M are parallel. And notice we have a transversal. I'll call it transversal T. Okay, so along transversal T, I have parallel lines L and M. That means that 16 and 1 are congruent because they are corresponding angles. So 16 is 80 degrees, the measure. 17 and 2 are corresponding angles, so 17 would be 100 degrees in measure. And you can use either vertical angles or use the fact that, for example, 15 and 2 are alternate interior angles, so this would be 100. So there's lots of different ways you could establish this. 16 and 18 are vertical angles, so that angle would be 80. Okay, now let's look at what we have around angle, the 4, 5, 6, and 7, that vertex right there. So again, angle 4 and 6 are vertical angles, so angle 4 is 125 degrees. 4 and 5 form a straight angle. They're supplementary. So if measure of angle 4 is 125, and measure of angle 5 is going to be 55 degrees because the sum has to equal 180. Measure of angle 7 would also be 55 degrees because it's a vertical angle to 55. Now we can use the fact that along, I'll call it transversal S, along transversal S, L and M are parallel along transversal S. That means that angles 4 and 13, for example, are corresponding angles. So angle 4 and 13 would be congruent. 13 would be 125 degrees in measure. 4 and 19 are alternate interior. It's also a vertical angle to measure 13, or angle 13, so this would be 125 degrees. Let's see, angles 5 and 20 are alternate exterior angles. So you could also use the fact that 20 and 19 form a straight angle, so it would be supplementary. But just using another fact, 19 and 20 are 5 and 20, excuse me, are alternate exterior, so they'd be congruent, so 55 degrees. Obviously 20 and 14 are vertical, so 14 would be 55, but you can also establish that, just to use another fact that we've used in our class, 14 and 4 are consecutive interior angles, so they would be supplementary. So if measure of angle 4 is 125, and 4 and 14 are supplementary, measure of 14 would have to be 55 degrees. Okay, now all we have is these angles in the center, and I'll do those in a different color just so they stand out. Okay, so let's see, we have that the measure of 11 plus 14 is 55 degrees, or 80 plus 55 degrees. So 80 and 55 degrees for 11 and 14 is 135 degrees. Now, we know that the measure of 11, 14, and 10 is 180 degrees. That's the triangle sum theorem. So 11, 14, and 10 in measure would be 180, but 11 and 14, this is the measure of angle 11. This is the measure of angle 14. The sum of those two is 135. So the measure of angle 10 is going to equal 180 minus 135, which is equal to 45 degrees. I think that's the key to unlocking this middle part. We have one of the angles, 45 degrees. For 45 degrees, 8 is a vertical angle to 10, so that would be 45 degrees. 10 and 3 form a straight angle, so they're supplementary. So measure of angle 3 would equal 135 degrees. And then for measure of angle 9, I'm going to do this a different way. Measure of angle 9 would be an exterior angle for the triangle containing 11, 14, and 10. The exterior angle theorem says that the exterior angle equals the sum of the non-adjacent interior angles. In other words, the measure of angle 9 is going to equal the sum of the measure of angle 11 plus measure of angle 14. And we already know from over here is that the measure of 11 and 14 is 135. So that would say that measure of angle 9 is also 135 degrees. And there you have it, a solved angle puzzle.